people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
News. Okay, we'll start with this. Early next month, on the 11th, Sulem Urbina is set to return to action. Bit of a hometown fight, a hometown affair. Sulem Urbina, a Mexican national, now based out of Arizona.
She's going to be returning at the Glendale Civic Center, June 11th.
Returning to action against an opponent that has yet to be announced. Her last 3 fights, she has had a bit of a rough patch. She lost a decision to her longtime amateur and professional rival, Marlen Esparza.
I happen to think she got a raw deal on the cards in the Fujioka fight.
Late last year in October, she drew with Tania Hernandez.
Sulem Urbina normally campaigns in the flyweight division.
Flyweight, that's 112 pounds.
Where Marlen Esparza holds the WBA and WBC titles.
Leonela Paula Judica, she's got the IBF, and Tamara DeMarco, she's got the WBO.
This will be Sulem Urbina's first fight this year.
There are rumors and rumblings of a strained relationship with the people over there at Golden Boy Promotions. This card doesn't appear to be a Golden Boy Promotions card, doesn't appear to be a Golden Boy Promotions show. I know of no association with this card and the people over there at the Zone, so I'm not sure.
Not at this time. I'm not sure if this card has a broadcast partner.
What I am sure of is that Sulem Urbina is better than her record gives her credit for. There's more to boxing than what you see on paper, and in spite of going through a rough patch in her last 3 fights, I am confident that she can get herself back in the winner's bracket and see about getting into world title contention. In the past, Sulem Urbina has campaigned in the flyweight division. She has. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see her move up in weight, move up to the super flyweight division. Super flyweight, that's 115 pounds. That is where Mexico's own Maribel Ramirez holds the WBA title. Lourdes Juarez, the younger sister of Barbie Juarez, she's got the WBC. Maciela Lujan of Argentina, she's got the IBF. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Sulem Urbina move up in weight and try her luck with the champions up there in the super flyweight division.
It might turn out to be a healthier weight for her.
Not having to cut that extra 3 pounds in order to make flyweight, staying right there at super flyweight, 115 pounds, she might be more energized, more invigorated, might not leave it all in the gym.
Being honest, I'd give Sulem good odds to beat Maribel Ramirez.
Decent odds to beat Maciela Lujan. The apex predator at this weight is Lulu Juarez, the younger sister of Bobby Juarez, this division's reigning WBC champion.
I think it would be harder to take that WBC title away from Lulu than taking those other titles from those other champions.
Those other champions ain't got as many fights as Lulu Juarez, not as much experience. Lulu comes from a fighting family.
Strangely enough, the weakest link in the chain, the weakest champion at 115 pounds just so happens to be Maribel Ramirez.
And what's strange about it is that Maribel Ramirez is this division's longest reigning champion. She won her title back in May of 2018, whereas Lulu won hers in 2020, Maciela won hers in 2021.
Maribel Ramirez is the longest reigning champion at this weight.
And the weakest link on the chain. You have to wonder if the Sulem Urbina people might not want to give Maribel Ramirez a call. See about setting something up. Maribel Ramirez, who was last in action last month on the night against Chile's own Daniela Asenjo. Before that, you can believe this, Maribel Ramirez hadn't fought in something like 3-4 years, yet she was allowed to hang on to that WBA super flyweight title. Maribel Ramirez is the least active champion.
Of the 4 active champions at this weight, Maribel Ramirez is the least active.
I think Sulem Urbina would be a welcome addition to the super flyweight division because the super flyweight division, it needs a shot in the arm. It needs fresh faces and fresh new blood.
This division don't get a lot of coverage, and these champions aren't fighting each other.
Perhaps Sulem Urbina can change that if she procures a world title of her own and starts unifying world titles, gets into those unification matches, because these champions don't seem interested in unifying titles. Well, maybe Sulem Urbina can change that. I
think she might return as a super flyweight, and if she does, it's a smart move.
But first, she's got to get through this upcoming fight on the 11th against an opponent that has yet to be announced.
And Sulem Urbina will attempt to rebound and get herself back into the winner's bracket.
I think she can do it. I think she's a better boxer than her record suggests. And in spite of having a rough patch in her last 3 fights, I think
going to super flyweight might be a good idea. Fighting for a title there. We'll see what happens.
Unfortunately, as we all know, Devon's father, Bill, is not here at the moment. And again, I have tried my best to help that situation, but that's on them. But I really don't know. How they let this guy into the country, to be honest. I don't think they let informants into the country. This guy is an informant. This guy is a rat. I'll tell you why. I will tell you why. Because in the Teofimo Lopez fight against a foreigner, his own countryman, he was messaging me, telling me all the details, every bit. Teo at the hookah lounge, Teo having problems with his wife. This is the kind of person. This is the kind of person. This is a rat. This is a rat. This is a snitch. This is an informant. And you know what? This is your countryman, your own countryman. You're going behind his back. So you know what? On Sunday, I'm gonna whip your ass. And you know when you get back to Las Vegas, you'll be on the lookout for Teofimo Lopez, because he'll be looking for you too. Trust me. And if you don't believe me, I'll put it out the straight off this presser. Yes or no? Was it the truth? Yes or no?
That's right.
That's a rat. That's a rat. Is that a rat? That's a rat.
that is George Kambosos and Devin Haney trading barbs ahead of what is their undisputed lightweight title fight this upcoming weekend. And in so many words, what George is saying is that Devin Haney was in fact feeding him intel.
Giving him the drop on Teofimo Lopez ahead of what was George's fight with him.
I think depending on who you ask, there are those who will take issue with this and those who won't, because Devin Haney, he was just as much Teofimo's rival as he currently is George's rival. And you know what the saying is? The saying is, all's fair in love and war.
It's not like there was ever a time where Devin and Teofimo were bosom buddies.
There wasn't. They've always traded barbs. They've always been professional and domestic rivals. So can this really be interpreted as some kind of a betrayal?
George is using the countryman angle.
That he betrayed his own countrymen to help a foreigner secure the victory. I mean, in so many words, that's what he's saying, and that's what he's trying to say. Guess he's trying to liken Devin Haney to Benedict Arnold.
This is all an attempt to rattle Devin Haney.
That along with this weekend's fight, that he has that to think about, he has that also to answer for. In truth, I don't think this really bothers Devin.
Yeah, I don't think he's losing any sleep over it.
George calling him an informant, saying that he ratted out his own countrymen, I don't think that bothers Devin in the least bit. What is interesting is what might come of it beyond this upcoming weekend's fight. If Devin Haney ends up beating George Kambosos and becomes this division's undisputed lightweight champion, there's a very interesting storyline there beyond that fight that involves Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez. Now that this information has been made public,
Devin's not going to stay at 135 pounds forever.
Now, very soon, this summer, Teofimo Lopez will be making his super lightweight debut. He will officially return to action, attempting to rebound off that loss to George Kambosos. He's coming back as a 140-pound fighter. You think about that, and you think about Devin and George and what happens beyond this weekend's fight. Devin, very soon, could be moving upstairs to 140 pounds as well. And that's where this storyline,
you know, Devin giving George intel about Teofimo.
It's an interesting angle to sell a potential fight. A potential fight between Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez. Should both boys see themselves campaigning at 140 pounds at the same time in the not-so-distant future?
I don't imagine Teofimo's going to be happy about this.
So as far as a betrayal, I don't really see Devin Haney feeding George Kambosos intel on Teofimo as any kind of a betrayal, because as stated, Devin and Teofimo,
those guys were never friends.
You guys were. You and Devin. You were on speaking terms, and that's why he felt comfortable enough to relay that information to you,
so that you could make use of it.
Whatever information he imparted. If Devin Haney felt comfortable enough with you to relay that information, that's because you and him,
you guys were buddies.
So is the betrayal Devin Haney feeding George intel on a guy he's not even friends with? Is that the betrayal, or is the real betrayal George Kambosos making this information public, knowing that he was fed that information at a time when he was actually on speaking terms with Devin, when they were more or less...
Well, they were friendlier then than they are now.
Is that the real betrayal? George Kambosos Jr. attempting to assassinate Devin Haney's character.
Using that against him.
Devin Haney's father, trainer Bill Haney, has reportedly now been formally denied a visa to travel to Australia for the George Kambosos Jr. fight. Zab Judah's father, Yoel Judah, will head Devin Haney's corner instead. I heard...
Ben Davison's not going to be there either.
So no Bill, no Ben, no comfort zone for Devin Haney. Knee-deep in hostile territory, kangaroo country.
Knee-deep in quokkas and koalas.
He's up against it. The deck is very much stacked against him, and he can't afford to coast on foreign soil. I'm very curious as to how it is Devin Haney plans on fighting this fight against George Kambosos Jr., because the idea he's going to go into Australia and back foot his way to a victory...
Yeah, I don't think he can afford to do that.
Fight the fight as the defender, as opposed to the aggressor, though Devin Haney playing the aggressor, that's not without its own pitfalls.
Yeah, being the aggressor is how he got nailed by Jorge Linares and ended up on Queer Street.
Very curious indeed as to how it is Devin Haney plans on fighting this fight. The way I look at it, if George wins, what we can expect moving forward, should Vasyl Lomachenko return, is a Vasyl Lomachenko versus George Kambosos Jr. fight in the lightweight division for the undisputed lightweight championship of the world. That's if George wins. If Devin wins...
Maybe we see a second fight with George?
Or maybe we don't. Maybe Devin abruptly vacates all those alphabet titles and move upstairs to 140 pounds, because in case you haven't realized, he's a growing boy. His body is still growing. He's still young. And I think making 135 pounds for Devin is proving more and more difficult as time progresses.
So maybe if Devin wins, we don't see a second fight and he moves up to 140 pounds.
At which point, the super fight, as it were, for Devin Haney would be a showdown with his domestic rival, Teofimo Lopez.
It's a spicy fucking fight.
And it's been a long time coming. The way I see it, if this is how the cookie crumbles, if Devin Haney wins this upcoming weekend, sees himself moving up to 140 pounds, the best thing for him to do once he gets there is see about fighting Teofimo Lopez.
In the not-so-distant future.
140 pounds is not one of the glamour weights, as it were. But that doesn't change that it's one of the most deep and dangerous divisions in the entire sport of boxing. You heard that right. Any one of those fights with any one of those notoriable guys, those notoriable fighters, at 140 pounds would be a dangerous fight for either Teofimo Lopez or Devin Haney. You're talking about Regis Prograis. You're talking about Jose Zapata, Jose Ramirez, Jose Pedraza,
Sandor Martin,
Jack Catterall, Josh Taylor, Subriel Matias, Gary Antoine Russell, Montana Love,
Arnold Barboza, Josue Vargas.
Yeah, political boundary lines in the politics of boxing might prevent some of these fights from happening, though not all. And Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez, they're more known than any of those aforementioned fighters. They are, which makes them targets for those aforementioned fighters.
Much they wouldn't love to get one of these little lightweights that moved up to super lightweight in the ring.
Because Devin and Teofimo both have profiles, because the both of those fighters are actually more well-known than any of the aforementioned super lightweights, a fight between them would be a more high-profile fight.
It'd be a more high-profile fight than fight one of those other 140 pounds.
And in some ways, a more winnable fight, as both Devin and Teofimo would be in the same boat. They'd both be lightweights that very recently moved up in weight.
I don't think any one of those two boys should waste their time worrying about Gervonta Davis.
Addressing this past weekend's lightweight contest between Gervonta and Rolly Romero, I've said it many times before, I'll say it again here and now. Gervonta Davis lives in a world parallel to the sport of boxing, though not exactly a part of it. And calling him out at this point, when we see he's going to stay on the PBC side of things, we see he's likely to re-sign to Mayweather Promotions, that would be an exercise in futility.
No point in doing it.
How many years did we see both Team Lomachenko and Team Davis trade barbs by way of social media? How many years did we see Team Farmer and Team Davis trade barbs by way of social media? And none of those barbs resulted in a fight. Thus, Devin...
Neither Devin or Teofimo shouldn't waste time worrying about Gervonta Davis.
Let him keep fighting guys like Rolly Romero in defense of his secondary title, his baby belt. Now, this weekend's fight will crown this division's undisputed champion, the #1 lightweight in the world, until further notice, until something changes, and that is irrespective of any novelty fights or fights for secondary titles, secondary belts, like this past weekend's fight between Rolly Romero and Gervonta Davis. Rolly, who says, I won all 6 rounds of that fight. I exposed him. We need to run that shit back.
They probably will.
To which Gervonta Davis stated, I don't think people deserve a rematch if they got knocked out like that.
Hey, Deontay Wilder knocked out Luis Ortiz in their first fight.
That didn't stop the PBC from putting a second one on. Deontay Wilder himself was stopped by Tyson Fury in their second fight. We still ended up seeing a third.
A rematch between Gervonta Davis and Rolly Romero is entirely possible.
More possible, I think, than either one of them facing the winner of this upcoming weekend's fight. George Kambosos and Devin Haney vying for supremacy at 135 pounds, undisputed status in order to be recognized as this division's #1.
You're going to see people that don't like the idea of this.
You're going to see people that want Gervonta Davis to get that kind of recognition without having actually fought the fight.
What's his lightweight resume?
Yuriorkis Gamboa and Rolly Romero, Isaac Cruz.
Needless to say, that doesn't seem like the resume for the #1 lightweight in the world.
Of course it doesn't, but that doesn't stop Gervonta Davis from being hyped up.
You know, his fans are going to still try to elevate him to that position, that post.
They're still going to expect guys like me and you to recognize him as some kind of a force in the lightweight division without forcefully proving that he's the most dominant fighter. They're still going to expect guys like me and you to rank him as such without him having actually fought the fights. He didn't fight Teofimo, didn't fight George, Devin, or Loma, or really anyone of note as a lightweight, but they're still going to expect guys like me and you.
Didn't fight Loma, didn't fight Linares, not even a Ray Beltran.
Not a Luke Campbell, not a Lopez, not a Comey, not a nothing.
Now, maybe those victories over unbeaten Rolly and unbeaten Isaac.
Maybe those are victories that might end up aging well for Gervonta Davis, or maybe they might end up aging like so many avocados on so many breakfast bars across America. Your guess is as good as mine, but what I do know is that at this time, neither Rolly Romero or Isaac Cruz are somebodies in the lightweight division. They're not.
They're not champions, and they're barely top 10 fighters.
Just barely. So while Gervonta Davis keeps busy with this level of opposition, while the real champions are fighting each other, the guys with belts, the guys vying for supremacy at this weight, Gervonta Davis will get no consideration from me.
His fanboys aren't going to be happy about it.
They will resort to telling you how many people showed up for his fight with Rolly and how much money he made, as if any of that has any bearing over his level of opposition, as if any of that makes Rolly Romero a better fighter.
A better scalp than a George Kambosos or a Devin Haney.
A better fighter than a Teofimo Lopez. They'll resort to telling you about Gervonta Davis's marquee value to compensate for what you don't see in his resume.
That's the go-to for these guys.
Are you getting a cut of the proceeds that you're so fucking worried about what he's making fight by fight?
Does what he makes fight by fight make Rolly a better fighter?
No, it doesn't. And he can keep fighting the Rolly Romeros and Isaac Cruzes of the world, but fighting them won't make him the #1 lightweight in the world.
Rolly wants a rematch, and I think at some point he might get it.
Because I've been telling you for weeks, I've been telling you for months, I don't anticipate Gervonta Davis is going to leave the Showtime platform or Al Heyman. Thus, the matchmaking, it will remain the same.
They're going to keep picking opponents for him from a very shallow talent pool.
A tepid one that includes both Rolly Romero, Isaac Cruz, I don't know, maybe Jezreel Corrales?
I'll think of something.
You just have to accept that Gervonta doesn't want to be the #1 lightweight in the world.
Just accept it.